Oh, life's a jungle, alright. One awful year. First off, before anything else, 2020, 2020, 2020. It was way back in June of 2016 where I last talked about this topic. I tend to keep my personal life off this channel, but with how much of a bullshit year this has been, combined with how much time has passed and how much I've grown and changed and learned, it's time to tap back in. We are living through historic, unprecedented times at the moment. Never in a million years did I expect that 2020 will be wrapped up in such chaos. A chaos that everyone simultaneously is going through. It doesn't matter if you're in America, Europe, New Zealand. Well, actually, I'm quite envious of New Zealand right now. But the point is, our daily life has been thrown off its axis for the time being. And the existential dread that comes with a worldwide pandemic is not an easy thing to deal with. At this point, I've kind of gotten over the hopeless nihilism that I felt in the early months of a lockdown, obscured, mask-wearing, social distance society. A lot of anxiety manifests from the fear of the unknown, the intrusive thoughts of what could come, or the lack of control of the situation you're in. It's been a depressing time even for the more hopeful of us out there. A hell of a lot of people are going through it, and it almost seems selfish to slant this video from my own perspective, but it's all I can really talk about with any honesty. Way back in April, I'm fairly certain I caught COVID. Unfortunately, back then, getting a test simply wasn't an option for me. This was way back when toilet paper, squash, and masks were impossible to find, so I couldn't even buy food without having to risk it. But I can't say with any certainty if I truly did have it or not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got COVID-19. I got no way to test for certain, but it's definitely respiratory, whatever it is, and it seems like a huge coincidence to have the symptoms that I do.
Yeah, this is not a bit, everybody.
It's only been in the last few months that I've started to feel a bit more like my normal self again. My biggest struggle pertaining to what I can only describe as brain fog, a recognized neurological symptom of recovering from the illness that appears to affect roughly about a third of people who contract the virus. It feels as if I'm constantly in a dream, or tipsy or something. Focusing is so much harder than it used to be. I never had a great memory, but I find myself tripping over my sentences in ways that I never used to. This general lack of sharpness left me in one of the most apathetic periods of anxiety and stress I've personally ever experienced. And learning to come to terms with it led me down a path of discovery about anxiety that you might find useful if you're struggling yourself at the moment. I find that the better I understand a concept, the less power it has over me. So in the case of anxiety, rationalizing and coming to terms with the reasons my brain is torturing me in this way is the key to overcoming it. My understanding is that our society has outpaced our apish bodies, so the various stresses that don't exist in the wild, such as money, work, or school, have some of us in a constant state of fight or flight that Mother Nature never intended. Our bodies are simply not built for chronic anxiety. But that doesn't mean there are not ways to overcome it and learn to live with it. Obviously, the number one response should be to visit a doctor if you're really suffering. I'm not professionally trained in any medical field, and there are so many variables that could be weighing you down. It's important to check there are no underlying health issues that need attention first and foremost. If you don't go to a doctor, it's effectively endless guessing games. As someone who prefers to avoid medication due to bad experiences with side effects, I have a number of different ways I've learned to deal with anxiety that help me. Some of this might sound extremely basic, but I didn't start thinking about this kind of thing until I heard it discussed on some podcast I was listening to when I was a teenager. I wish I'd heard it somewhere sooner. So if this even helps a small amount of people, I'll consider it worth it. Obviously, and you've heard it all before, diet and exercise do play a huge role in keeping your body and mind happy. Luckily, I have these stupid dogs, so I have to walk every day, so I've got no excuse to not get my body moving. The endorphins released from exercise are key to getting out of those negative thoughts or slumps. I could barely even do a single press-up at the start of the first lockdown, but now I can do at least 2. It's pointless comparing yourself to anyone but yourself. That's a pit I've fallen into countless times. It's too easy to compare yourself to all the other seemingly perfect lives out there portrayed on social media. Small, personal, achievable, incremental goals lead to a surprising amount of change if you can just commit to it and stay consistent. Mindfulness might sound like a silly pseudoscience, but breathing exercises and meditation is incredibly helpful to countless people who swear by it. It doesn't work for everyone, but I have found a fair few guided meditations that help me quite a bit. This is my favorite one. Sometimes it is worth slowing everything down and focusing on nothing but your breathing. It can help you feel more rational and more control of your surroundings. Or maybe I've been watching too much Star Wars. There's an album created by Marconi Union which has become my go-to when things feel overwhelming. Specifically designed with the British Academy of Sound Therapy to reduce stress, I urge anyone to listen to at least part 1 if it all feels like a bit much. I think I'm quite sensitive to music and sound though, so it works for me. Also, stay off Twitter. That place is like anxiety if it manifested as a social media platform. That awful, awful website. You know, it never truly goes away, but you can learn to live with it. I know that sounds depressing, but it's actually not that bad if you can get control of it. I think especially if you're a hormonal teenager that doesn't understand anything, something like anxiety can be almost impossible to deal with alone. But by talking about it and getting help, it is possible to get a grapple over it and beat it to submission. I used to be so much worse than I am now. It was painful when I was a teenager. I hope I don't come across as condescending or rude. It's an inherently awkward subject. Obviously, issues like this are very personal and contingent on your own strife, but I do remember what it was like at my absolute worst and how hard it was to get to the position I'm in now. So good luck to you, stay safe, and here's to a slightly less shitty new year. I do realize I've barely uploaded in 2020, which I do want to rectify next year. I spent a huge amount of time in purgatory while being sick and moving a boatload of stuff behind the scenes. I'm eager to get through the IMDb bottom 100 before my 10-year YouTube anniversary in 2023. I've built up a very healthy collection of Blu-rays and DVDs, with some particularly nasty stuff arriving at my PO box, thanks for that. I have been working on a Destiny Beyond Light video, but I keep toying with the idea of abandoning it, because I've A, taken too long, and B, I haven't been able to play it enough. Honestly, it's so boring, I don't know if I can hack grinding the same content anymore. Either way, thanks for sticking around and supporting me. I do appreciate it a lot. I'll see you next year.